What happens when learning people retire? Do they just go out to pasture and do nothing for the rest of their life? Or do they actually learn more, grow more, contribute more? You know that we've got one of these guys in house, but we've got another one of our best learning friends. Dan Bielenberg is joining us today on the Learning Geeks podcast, starting now. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello, Bob.
Welcome.
Hey, Dan.
Wonderful.
Hey,
Great
Dan?
to see you guys. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's been way too long. Way too long. Yeah. We were trying to suss out in the green room exactly when was the last time that at least Dan and I saw each other. And it was way too long ago. I don't know if we figured out the exact year, but we shouldn't be going multiple years without talking.
I agree. I mean, I left in 2019, early 2019, and in retrospect, I tried to change too many things all at once. Like retire from Accenture, move to a new city. My wife got a different job. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot to happen, and it was a lot to process.
Yeah. Well, let's unpack that. So tell us a little
So
bit more
I,
about yourself,
but
Dan. And, go ahead. Or Dana, go ahead.
Bob, yeah, Bob, I was going to say I did a little different. I moved to a different city, and then about a year after, then I retired. So I had a year to kind of get adjusted to the new locale.
That's wisdom
Yeah.
gained. Is what. Yeah. So
I learned from your mistake, even though we didn't talk about it.
Yeah. Well, Dan, why don't you give us the Dan Bielenberg mini biography here? As you guys can probably tell, as you guys being our audience can probably tell, Dan worked with the three of us at Accenture back in the day. But Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing ever since you left Accenture.
okay. I mean, I've always been a learning geek myself. I think at Accenture, I was one of the people, along with you all, who would always enjoy kind of trying out new things, innovating, kind of sent to explore and venture into new things, and that really didn't stop. I mean, one of the motivators for me leaving was to try out a new kind of career and a new kind of dimension of learning. I went into just a few years before I left Accenture, I entered into a seminary program because I really wanted to go deeper on my faith and the spiritual side of myself. I had no idea vocationally where it was going to go. I didn't really feel the call to be a formal minister, at least in my tradition, but it felt like time to go and try this new chapter out. And so I left in 2019, and it's been a very eventful 7 years. Finished up the formal program. Oh, I will say this. I went in this as a learner. Like my main goal was just to learn more and go deeper, right? And one of the most of the coursework was all cognitive stuff, like reading stuff, writing papers, maybe giving talks. But one of the most impactful things that I did was toward the tail end. You do a practicum, clinical pastoral education, of what it's called, CPE. And for 6 months, I tried to be and learned how to be a hospice chaplain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And people who know what hospice is, I'm basically bedside with people on a regular basis until they pass. And so I'm, building relationships with them, sometimes with their family members. And I got to tell you, as a person who likes to be right, likes to do things correctly, and that's kind of the learner performer in me, really wanted to nail it,
Yeah.
Right.
But I remember the first day that I was supposed to go to this place and do this new thing that I've never done. Oh, well, I'll do a bracket in a minute here. I remember thinking to myself, what in the world do I have to offer these people? Like, what in the world can I do? And then it occurred to me, this kind of quite settled myself by saying, these people don't need correct answers. They don't need theology. They don't need really anything. Don't need me to say anything. What they need is just me to be with them. And so it was several months of me practicing how to be present in a real intentional, caring way, whether I said anything or not. And sometimes I would just be there and not say a word. Sometimes I'd be there and read a little thing. Yeah. So that was probably one of the deepest and the newest kinds of learning that I had when I left.
Yeah.
I didn't continue in a role as a chaplain. I thought about it. I thought, because it was affirming. By the end of the time, I was like, yes, I can do this. I can sit with people and be with them. And it helped me to let go a lot of the right and wrongness, my thinking about right and wrong answers.
Yeah.
So, big one.
So
That's
you're
really
going to bracket
interesting.
it. What's the bracket that you were?
What was the bracket I was going to see? Now I've forgotten. Another thing that happens. Seriously.
It's not only when you retire that you start forgetting more, Dan. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, I do have a question then, like maybe it'll come
Yeah.
back up, Dan, but like with that experience, because I think it's a fascinating experience there, but was there a moment where you did feel like I got this? Like I got as a hospice chaplain, what was that really made you feel like you got it?
Yeah, I would say two things. One is, yes, there was a time, and I think my whole definition of "you've got it" changed.
Okay, that's interesting.
The
Yeah.
standard that I was applying to myself at the beginning was I've got to be correct. Like, and I don't even know how you judge it at this point. And after about 2 weeks, really, after there's the mechanics of getting to the place and getting in and finding the room and the jitters you'd have in building a new relationship with somebody. But once I had passed through that, it was really enjoyable. It was enjoyable to go see these people, even though they're going through the last stages of their life. People are beautiful. They, in a way, they're letting go too.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a chance to do one of the things you learn how to do is to basically do history recollection. So you get them to tell stories. And I might have had some cues going in from the person that was working before them, but you just get them to tell their stories. Maybe there's photographs or albums near their bed, and we talk through them. And yeah, it was, very. So yes, I learned. I think I got to the point where I felt okay about it. And by the end, I was like, yeah, do I want to do this? And became one of those possibilities for me when I left.
Interesting.
Well, my thought when you were telling the story, Dan, is I was putting myself in your shoes, and so I was kind of projecting. I think that first time in there, I would have been scared to death, and that was a terrible way to put it.
Yeah,
I would have been
probably
very
not a good way to
scared.
put that.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that was really unnatural. Don't edit that out, though, Jake. It's kind of funny. It lightens it up. I would have felt very scared, and I was just talking this week with people about the effect of cortisol on learning and how too much of it will shut down the learning process, but a little bit of it will actually
Encourages.
make it happen. And when you can regulate your cortisol down to that level, that would be a great thing.
Yeah. You're looking for that sweet spot. I think they call it the liminal zone of liminal attention or something, liminal development. Because otherwise, if you're not stressed, if you're not anxious enough, then you just go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I remember the bracket. Can I say something about the bracket?
Yeah.
What's the bracket?
The bracket was a thing that I also had in my head, came from my years at Accenture. Toward the last 5 or 10 years, we did the Gallup Strengths Finder.
Yeah.
Y'all remember that? And
Yeah.
I remember, I had a learner was number 1, and it continues to be. Number 34, which is the bottom of the list, was empathy.
That was mine too. I was last. Yeah.
Wow, that's my number one.
No, learner was number 1 for me, and
yeah.
empathy was the last one.
Wow.
34. So imagine me, I'm like, I've got this baggage because going into like chaplaining and anything in ministry, you're going to need to be empathetic. And it's number 1, not number 34 for me. So that was also a concern. I was like, I have nothing to offer these people. I don't know if I'm going to have the right answers. And I really apparently am not empathetic to people. That was now what was good is I still understand and agree with empathy being low for me, because by the way Gallup defines it is it's more about my attention, my ability to perceive other people's emotions. It doesn't mean I don't care. And I just show up caring in a different way. I'm curious. I do pay attention really well, and I can be present with people, and they think that means I care.
And that's what's interesting about the polls like that. They can be helpful, but they can also get wrong ideas in your head, I think.
Oh, totally.
100%.
That's what the label, and Gallup says this. The labels have their own baggage, and so you have to kind of hold them loosely. I got Gallup certified last year as
Oh
a
wow.
Gallup strength coach. Yeah, that was a new learning for me.
That's great. And so, what are you doing with that? Again, in this unpacking of what do I get to do when I finally retire?
Well, yeah, I found both the need and the desire to make a little money. And
Mhm.
after I left, after the nonprofit I was working for went out of business, and so I started working with our good friend Jenny Stein and working with higher education. So coaching. So I'm doing executive coaching for professors, for research scientists, for deans and assistant deans, and that kind of crew. And one of the tools that we use and that Jenny's been using for years is the Gallup Strengths Framework. And so it's very helpful. I mean, it's not the answer. There's a lot of different profiles we can all use to understand ourselves. But I think Gallup is pretty good, and I've used it now in facilitating group sessions and with individuals in coaching. So we do a process. You do your assessment, and then there's usually 2 or 3 sessions where we will unpack what's in there and help to understand, help them to get to. I think we taught this in the classes to name it, aim it. No,
Claim it.
name it, claim it, aim it.
Yeah.
So the 3. So still doing that, still naming, still
Yeah,
claiming, aiming, and helping people do that.
that's great.
How well is that received in that environment, in the academic environment and the scientist environment?
It's received well. I mean, I think the quality of the individual reports really, I think without fail, yeah, surprises people, and they see themselves in it at some level. And you give them permission. Put a star on the things that you agree with or you see, and
Yeah.
X out things you don't like, and then let's talk about it. But almost all the time, they find something that is relevant to them and that explains something they haven't really thought about for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say that most people that I talk to are like, "Oh, I did that years ago and I don't think about it anymore."
Yeah.
And that's pretty common. So people that use it to kind of help inform their identity, like I still do, they're not that common.
Hmm.
And what's the goal for most of the people that you're coaching? Are they trying to improve their relatability, better in the classroom?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the whole reason that academic leadership group has a business,
Yeah.
in coaching anyway, is that these academics are brilliant people, brilliant scientists. Sometimes they're pretty good teachers. What they never learned and were never trained how to lead people or how to manage people or supervise people. So the bulk of what we do is that we're filling in a big gap that they've got. So particularly in the hard sciences, you know, once they get to a faculty position, they have their own labs. Then they hire people to work in those labs as techs, as graduate students and postdocs and that sort of thing. And that's your nuts and bolts of leadership, supervision, giving feedback, handling conflicts, delegating, managing priorities. You guys all know all of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I benefited from my time in the corporate world learning these things too. So that it makes it easy for me to share those things. And like I said, my experience in being like a chaplain for a minute was learning the value of just being present with people. Because believe it or not, they don't have a lot of space in their life for that. Like, very few people are going to meet with them and just, tell me what's going on. What are you proud about? What challenges do you see? What do you want to work on? And they can sort of unpack experiences that they really want to understand better, or they want to plan for a scenario that's coming up and talk through different options.
What if one of the questions I had earlier, but you're kind of maybe answering this a bit, but I always think of what's different between an academic educator's scientist experience versus someone that we would support and serve in the corporate and organization. Is it that many of their roles are kind of have been very siloed and on their own? What do you think are the main differences and some of the challenges that comes across when you have to support them and coach them?
My recollection of the corporate experience was that a lot less autonomy than these scientists have. They have
Okay.
more autonomy.
Yeah,
Things
yeah.
they choose to work on, the agendas, the problems they get to solve. They get to decide who to hire, and that's usually not the case necessarily. And other than they're on their own, at least faculty are on their kind of road, hopefully to be a tenured professor, and that's a long, pressure-filled path. But it's very different than being in a corporate world where you're looking for your next promotions. And I think one other difference would be just time. Like it's a little bit more relaxed time-wise, time scale of like Accenture. It was just a very fast-paced world,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit slower in the academic sphere, almost universally. Like things happen, the wheels turn more slowly.
Interesting.
It's
Okay.
been very challenging this last 2 years or this last year, and it's been very disruptive with what the administration has done. But that hasn't really changed the pace. It just increased the tension and the stress level on everybody's part.
Not to a good level of stress, as we were talking
No.
about before.
Yeah. Too much cortisol
Too much cortisol. That's right.
impedes the learning.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's
Dan,
like we've been like the people that I coach. They're doing that with their people too. Like they might be in a safer place, more secure role, but their people are worried. Their people are worried that there won't be any grad school spots or any faculty spots because of the changes that are going on.
Yeah.
So they're having to kind of help calm down and deal with the emotions of the people that work for them.
yeah. People are worried out here too in the job market.
Yeah.
It's a scary, unpredictable time.
Yep.
But again, people that
Before-
don't, but again, people that have usually been on their own, not led people, that is a whole other emotional draining, energy draining task that you have to do to manage that, plus do your other work, plus hopefully develop for yourself. So like, that's one thing to truly learn. And I think during these moments, especially, you get a hard lesson, how to do it, and hopefully you can do it effectively.
Yeah.
One of the other things we talked about that we may want to discuss on this is the one of the Harvard research reports that recently came out, where it basically said that Gen Z, I'm going to just read the quote from here. It says that they're the first generation in modern history to score lower on standardized academic tests than the one before it. And Dan, you had some thoughts about IQ testing and some of the limitations, and I thought it might be interesting to chat a little bit about that topic.
So I guess first of all, let's make sure we're clear about Gen Z. Like, how old are the Gen Z people? What's their range here? Like the oldest ones are in their 30s?
Between 97 and 2010.
Okay,
It was his research.
97. So the oldest ones are almost 30,
Yeah.
right? Youngest ones are in their 20s. Yeah, my thought on that article was, for me, it highlights, first of all, it's not a surprise. I think the attention, the way our attention is being attacked or siphoned or whatever word you want to use it, monetized for sure,
Yeah.
plays a big role in this. And I think the article that you shared underlines that. And it's something to really pay attention to. At the same time, I think that it also highlights the sort of narrow view of cognitive learning being the main thing. And certainly cognition is important, cognitive domain, but I'm kind of late to the party to realize that is not the only thing that people learn. Is what to think and what goes into your brain. There's so many other aspects of life. There's the emotional intelligence, more social understanding, community, etc. And one thing I taught for a brief time. I taught about generational differences in another role that I had. And Gen Z is way more emotionally intelligent than I was. So they actually understand their feelings. They can name them. I didn't have a lot of words for the feelings that I had.
I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling really bad.
Yeah.
I'm feeling terrible.
Yeah. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'm sad. I'm angry. Like a pretty narrow, pretty toddler level vocabulary. The Gen Z people I know are way more articulate about it, and you can say that's very soft feely, but I think it's valuable to be able to sort of name what you're feeling and then sort of interrogate it and say what's going on. And so I don't think the IQ tests cover that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
honestly,
it's really interesting. It's really interesting when you think about how it's the human skills that are going to continue to be relevant in the AI world. It's like the
Right.
cognitive ones are going to be less valuable.
yeah,
It's the how do we relate to people and interact with people that is going to be what matters the most.
yeah. Like I don't remember emotional intelligence. Maybe one of our colleagues brought that up, but I don't remember it ever being like officially in a course that we taught.
I
Like
don't think so.
self-awareness.
No.
There's a 2x2 that's really good. Daniel Goleman's been doing this for
Right.
20 years.
Right.
And yet the research, and not just Daniel Goleman, would say that is the number one skill that leaders should have and should develop. And so it was kind of a blind spot thing for me. And then again, you learn how to build self-awareness and what emotions are you experiencing, and then you start to build your ability to regulate them. And then you start to learn how to recognize emotions in other people and what to do about that, whether it's
Yeah.
to manage it or manipulate it or whatever you're going to do.
Yeah. It requires
Yeah.
a different type of learning
Yeah,
than the cognitive process.
absolutely.
And I think the first part of it is being able to put a label on it, as you were saying, right? Once you put a label on it, you say, okay, now what do I do with that label? And are there other parts of that label that are connected to other types of emotional approaches?
Right.
Or,
Right.
Yeah.
and then how can I use those skills in a positive way to contribute to society?
No, I know. In
If I had been taught that in school, I would have saved like thousands of dollars on therapy.
No kidding.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I was gonna say, Dana, too. Like a part around that topic, what tends to also be discussed is the impact of technologies, specifically
Yes.
EdTech, when it comes to
Yes.
that. So, our good friend Tessa Forshaw actually forwarded a paper that was Dr. Jared Cooney, Harvard. I don't know if I have his name correctly, but he was he did a he was a neuroscientist educator that shared to the U.S. Senate and was talking about it's the impact that EdTech has currently have on one's ability, specifically in the with children's ability to learn. But even like when I looked at this, like the results, and I also thought about those that are adults and how much we are kind of swarmed with the task switching and all of the
Right.
information that we get and the distractions that we have in front of us. Like right now I'm looking at three monitors. Sorry, I have my iPad out now writing, like three devices with a work phone and a personal phone in front of me at all times. So that's another thing, Dana, that like is a whole other
and
topic
one of
in that area.
one of the phrases he used in that research was the short form content is what he called it.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that the short form content does not necessarily drive you to critical thinking or deep problem solving, so that the prefrontal cortex doesn't get as engaged. It's more looking for the dopamine hits, that what's the next thing going to be. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times the opinions are not as well informed because there's that other type of deeper thinking doesn't take place.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you talked about in there was the idea or the research around when you take digital technology out of classrooms, students tend to do better. I thought that was very interesting as well. And Utah
That
is
is
actually
interesting.
putting in place some laws around the usage of phones in classrooms. There's some of the schools they say you can't do it at all. They give them the little lockers for their devices, and when they leave school, and they can pick them up.
I mean, but back
And they're finding the academics are climbing pretty significantly.
Wow.
What's interesting, again, back to Danny, your point about like as I'm looking at the paper, I see math, reading, science, which again
Yes.
is typically around cognitive
None of
based
the
emotional
things.
stuff.
So none of the emotional stuff, and it's looking at kids across the globe. So that's a good thing. Again, it's presented to the U.S. Senate, but it's actually looking at population across the globe. But again, it's typically math, reading, and science are usually the what they're looking at.
Yeah.
I read an article recently. I think was it Matt Damon who was producing a movie for Netflix, and he said the guidance from Netflix is you have to restate the plot 3 times during a movie that's made for Netflix because you've got to assume that they are watching their phone or doing something else while people are watching a movie.
Interesting.
So it's like, how about, monetizing the gap of attention? At the same time, I saw an article just a couple weeks ago that said micro learning is making your people dumber or something like that. It was some clickbaity thing. And
Did you click it?
of course I did. And because I rage read it.
Uh-huh.
I was going to bring this up when we were talking about hot takes, the hot take that hot takes are bad. It's just so easy to look at one finding
Yeah.
and make a broad generalization. And I would say, if you are unwise enough that you pivot all of the learning that you provide to people in your company to micro learning, then yeah, probably that's the case. But I hope nobody is doing that. There are use cases where micro learning can be really effective.
All right.
I think we demonstrated that, but just not with everything.
So how do you define micro learning?
That's a good question. Yeah. I'm going to make this definition up on the spot, but I'm going to pretend that I'm in a critical meeting with
I have a rubric.
new boss.
I have a rubric over the side that I'm going to grade you
You're
on.
the learning scientist. You're
Okay.
the scientist. You get to define it.
I know. I'm going to say it is short form learning. So it's something that can be consumed in a short amount of time, like, 3-4 minutes or less.
Okay.
And that it's really focused on kind of one learning nugget, one single learning nugget is how I would define micro learning. How did I do, Jake?
I would say in terms of how we define it, how most people define it, I would say pretty good.
Okay. And I might add that short form content is one thing, but when you can apply it right afterwards, I think that's when it becomes learning, right? So
yeah,
I think some of the little YouTube videos you watch as you're trying to figure out how to fix the dishwasher or do a piece of code, which you don't need to do anymore because of AI, but some of those types of things. You learn it, you apply it, or you consume it, you apply it, and then in theory you've learned it.
Yeah.
And I think of how I Bob, why I said I think the way that you defined it is typically the way that it's sold, and I don't mean that really monetary wise. I just mean like how microlearning has been sold over. It's usually a package of some type of information or some type of a knowledge-based thing that's typically delivered in some type of form. And what I think is often missing, Dana, is what you're talking about, is that it's the actual transfer into application that is often not as sold as often. So when we hear microlearning, we hear often it's defined as the way of like this packaging of content or information.
Yeah. Because when you apply it, that means beforehand you've had context, right? I'm coming to this problem with all kinds of background and I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the micro learning, I'm going to solve it. So you've got the context wrapped around the learning, and then you've got the application.
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess the outcome that I've been using micro learning, I love your definition of micro learning. I've been using like a meditation app for the last 2 years. I don't know if you've seen these on the market, but they're not religious explicitly, but they are. You're learning these practices. You're learning how to be mindful. A lot of it is mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
But it comes in these bites, and there's typically like a 1 minute, 2 minute thing about what to pay attention to and what to, and then a guided meditation that goes for maybe 10 minutes. And what I've noticed over 2 years of doing this almost every day is that I learn. I'm learning stuff, right? I'm actually more mindful. I'm learning what to recognize. I've changed what I'm paying attention to and what I can do about it. And so for me, it's been a very successful application. I don't know how some other outcomes, like how you learn a technology or how you learn I don't know, Jake, what about a habit? Could you build a habit that way?
Going to the dentist and getting
you're going to put me out of this. So before,
I called you out because of the dentist.
for the audience in the green room, we're talking about how I went to the dentist today. My dental hygienist pretty much called me out for not using my mouth guard because I don't do it, and and
Your
Dan's
cortisol went way up.
yep, and Dan's
Yep.
calling me out to make sure I practice and build a habit of putting that in front of my face and making sure.
Well,
I put
using
it,
microlearning.
Use some
Use
Yeah,
microlearning.
Q action reward, Jay. Q action reward.
You action reward.
Yeah, yeah. Dan, I'm curious. So now that you've kind of been away from the corporate space for a while, and Jake and I are still in it, and we're still doing the same thing that you did with us back in the year.
Bless you.
Looking back, where are you like, oh, I wish I had done things differently? Like, what advice would you have
man.
that you might not have thought of before taking this time off?
A really, really good question. I can say what I would hope that a person that I would have done, what a previous Dan would have done. Maybe this is advice for you, but I think that emotional intelligence part is really important, and I think becoming more self-aware. I think most of my time in the corporate world, I was operating out of performance anxiety and fear, and that shows up in a lot of ways that are unhealthy. As a leader, you guys remember the trust equation? Charlie
Yes.
Green and the
Yeah.
yeah,
I still
Sure.
use that.
credibility, reliability. Oh my gosh, credibility, reliability, intimacy over
inclusivity.
self-orientation.
And it's that over self-orientation that I think is really important, because at least to be aware of it, like, why am I doing this? Like, who am I doing this for? And can I reduce that self-orientation enough so that I can make a decision on behalf of my team or on behalf of this other person or my client? It's so important, and it's yet so hard, because if you're operating out of scarcity or fear or something like that, that's hard to, that goes below cognition, right? That's like, that's amygdala stuff.
Yeah.
So that'd be one thing.
That was a good one. I mean, you could leave it at that, because that was a rich one.
Yeah.
Unless the laughter is making you think of something very
Well,
engaging or obvious. Funny.
There's something else in
Funny.
there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was at Accenture for 25 years, right? And so I think the early years, every time a new wave would come, a new wave of innovation,
New shiny.
thing
Yep.
that we were going to sell, and we were going to needed to train people about it and so forth. There was a certain buy-in that I sort of got excited about it, right? I would get, oh yes, and I forget what they all were, but there was an excitement about it. Toward the end, it was less of that, and it was more cynicism. I was more like, oh, here comes the new. And then our CEO at the time started calling it the new. And I was like, oh my, like jump the shark. So you guys can explain to your audience another time. But I feel like to be aware of that and to figure out what is needful, what do people need here. So, to not feel the need to buy into the marketing as much as be real. And probably that's going to make me ask better questions of my sponsors and people who are bringing this thing to me. To teach all my people this. And I'm going to be a little bit more challenging about that and try to sift out what is really going to change for people and why should they? Why should they change?
Yeah.
And be a bit more, big stronger about that, I guess.
Yeah.
The question why is a very good question to ask.
Right.
Over and over again,
Because Jake doesn't need more training in how to use his mouth guard. He just needs to start doing it.
I just need to start doing it and just build the habit of cleaning it, put it in my mouth and doing it. But I would say, I know we're coming up on time here, but I would just on that.
Sure. He wants to stop the discussion about the mouth guard.
I got so much of it earlier today. I walked out of that dentist office. I'm like, I feel so ashamed.
I feel bad.
So terrible.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the mouth guard. I had all of these other things. I'm like, geez.
Is it going to motivate you to change? Sincerely, Jake, do you think it's going to motivate you to change?
Well,
or are you going to find another dentist?
It did make me think about 3 years ago when I had to do a root canal and had to do all this teeth stuff. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that again, nor pay for it again. Maybe I should get back on the train of doing this. But
so maybe dental hygienists could benefit from emotional intelligence training.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Some. I've had some that are really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I lost my train of thought where I was going. So
okay.
You're saying we're about out of time.
We're about out of time anyway. So Dan Bielenberg, it has been fantastic to catch up. It's amazing to get your perspective of what life is like outside of the rat race here, and we wish you all the best. And it's just great to see you.
It's great to see you,
Great
Dan.
to connect.
Likewise, great to see you guys. Great to talk. And again, we shouldn't, Bob, you're right. We shouldn't wait a million years to do this again. So thank you.
That's right.
Doesn't have to be fast, but yeah.
You know, the last thing I wanted to ask you though is, are you still playing music?
Oh, I'm doing more than ever. More than
nice.
ever.
I love it.
This could be, I played the saxophone. Last year, I wrote 21 songs.
Wow.
It was,
Wow.
I'm not on that pace now, but last year was kind of a big kind of push. My younger son is in the music business, and he convened this group to try to write a song every week. And we would all
that's cool.
as long as you could, it didn't, I mean, the main goal was to get over the self-judgment and just put something together, record it, upload it. And then we all committed to listen to everybody's stuff and comment on it. Right. So it was a community experience as well as a kind of an exercise in the creative process.
Yeah. And is it all jazz or is it different genres?
My stuff is mostly guitar with a little bit of saxophone thrown in. I had to learn how to use Ableton to mix things. But guitar and voice and a little saxophone here and there. And, you know, it's, for me, songwriting is a way to process a lot of stuff that's going on in the world and in my life and relationships and stuff. So,
yeah. But there's a learning lesson there of, you know, just do it. Just get in there and do it and try it and learn and keep going. I mean, that's how we started podcasting.
Yep.
Right? So, all right. Well, with that, Dan, we will let you go. Thank you, Jake and Dana, as always. Thank you for being here. And to our listeners, as always, thank you for listening. We'll be back with another episode of the Learning Geeks podcast real soon. Until then, see you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks, Dan.
bye, guys.